Hi, I'm Alex Howard, and welcome to this week's episode of In Therapy, where we follow real-life people on their therapeutic journeys. In this week's episode, we're exploring why listening to and honouring and acting upon what we ultimately want and desire is so important, and the price we pay when we let other people constantly dictate what happens in our lives. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, click the bell icon and you'll be notified as new episodes are released. And make sure you follow my Instagram at Alex Howard Therapy for daily inspiration and support. This week, we catch up with 65-year-old Beverly, who's at a crossroads in her life. Looking back, there's never been anything that she's felt passionate about. Last time we explored how feeling anger is fundamental to standing up for ourselves and protecting our boundaries, and that avoiding it can have adverse consequences. So Bev, it's lovely to see you.
Thank you, good to be here.
How have you been doing since last time?
Well, it's been a bit of 3 steps forward and 2 back. So there's been some very difficult times, but some positive stuff as well. So, and it's knowing where to start. There's just so much.
Well, last time I saw you, one of the things we were talking about was that strong inner critic shaming pattern that was coming in, and you were going to go away and do some homework exploring and building more awareness around that. So maybe that's a helpful place to start.
Yeah, I can certainly remember that from that session. When I left here from last time, I was very, very down. And I think in retrospect and writing about it afterwards, it was to do with the realization of how much my life had been run on my inner critic and my achiever pattern, which was something that you said, and also my perfectionist pattern. And I don't think that was an awareness I just hadn't had. And I think I felt quite angry when I left last time.
Interesting.
It's quite hard for me to say this, but I know it's important that I do. I think because, and it isn't rational, but then it's not, is it? Because my head's saying one thing and my heart's saying another thing.
Yeah.
It was because I felt that the session had been so hard and I wasn't seeing you for 3 weeks. And there was this feeling of being abandoned.
Interesting.
And I knew it was completely unrealistic. You know, that was just the feeling, and I thought, come on, as much as you don't like this, you've got to acknowledge the feeling.
Yeah. So I think there's 2 pieces to this. I think I really want to explore the feeling, but I also want you to know, you can reach out to me at any point, right? And if you're in a place which feels too difficult to be with, I've always got time. I mean, at 3 o'clock on a Sunday morning, I might not have time, but within a few days, I've always got time to have a quick conversation and to help you figure out what you need to support you between then and the next time I see you. It's important that you know that.
Thank you. And I guess somewhere inside of me, I did know that it was just that feeling. So there was that. And I also realized I came away with quite a bit of jealousy, which is something I know I have, and I don't like looking at it at all. So I think,
do you know what the jealousy was about?
Oh, because you're all in couples here. You're in a couple with children, you're going away for half term and you've got a farmhouse. And it all felt a bit like I haven't got anything. It was very much victim poor me. And I find it actually even quite hard to say that.
But I'm really happy that you're able to, you feel safe enough to bring that into this conversation.
Yeah. I knew I needed to say it.
Yeah.
Because I know it's good.
And as much as in that moment it was about that moment, it sounds like that moment was an insight into a pattern which was about much more than that moment, in a sense. That somehow there's a way that you look to what others have, to what you have, and there's something in you that doesn't feel at peace with that.
Yeah. And it can go along with me being really happy because people have got what they've got, because they've often worked hard for it, and I want to be happy for them, and I am. But I have to also accept that there's that dark side, if you like. There's the light side and the dark side.
Can you say more about that dark side?
Do I have to?
You don't have to do anything.
No, I know, but I shouldn't have brought it up, should I really? That'll serve me right, won't it?
We can always put it back in the bin and put the lid on if you like.
No, it's got to get
but it's also, I think that it's often the places we least want to go, that there's the greatest potential for something to shift and something to change. Because if you track back to the beginning of our work together, a key objective, in a sense, of what we're looking at is you finding your purpose and your passion for this next chapter of your life.
Yeah.
Part of that is the places in you that you bury, that you stifle, the parts of you that do want something and do feel charged and emotional about that. In a sense, those places that feel uncomfortable to go, I think, are the places where the real transformation comes from, because they're the parts of you that are angry, that are frustrated, that feel stuck, that feel jealous. But there's also aliveness in there.
Yeah. It's even hard for me to get a handle on them because they're so buried. Because if I do a meditation, go into the emotional stuff, there's often still the sadness. And I've also kicked up something that really struck me, that I didn't know if it was an anxiety pattern or if it was fear. And that seems really strong. But I can't seem to get a handle, in a meditation anyway, on the anger. I did come across it. I've had 2 occasions where it's manifested. And I suppose the jealousy is manifested as well. I went out for the day with a girlfriend, and I was angry with myself afterwards because I should have stuck up for myself. It was just going out to dinner, and we ended up ordering what she wanted rather than what I would have liked to have had, and I just let it pass. And so I was aware that there was anger there.
Yeah.
And I'd pushed it down.
Yeah. You accommodated her rather than you.
Yes. But to try and look at it and see what it feels like, I have to be honest, I haven't done.
Well, again, there's a few stages to it, right? There's the stage where she's saying, shall we have this?
Yeah.
And I wonder if what happens is a part of you goes, no, I don't want that, I want this. Oh, but that would be really rude, and I'm just going to say this. Or you don't even notice how you feel.
I don't even.
Because you're so quick to go, oh, that sounds fine.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like your reference point for what you want is historically not internally referenced. What I mean by that is when you were a child, what you wanted was generally decided by what was going to make your mum feel better.
Yeah.
So you weren't turning to, how do I feel? What do I like? What do I want? You were going, what do you want? Yes, that's fine. And it sounds like, and then there's probably the part of you now that goes, but hang on a second, I don't bloody well want to eat that. And then of course you're angry and you're resentful because you don't want to, you can feel part of being more emotionally open, and part of us exploring this is you are more in touch with how you feel and what you want.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't think there isn't that, and there isn't that kind of check in my mind that do I want this or whatever. It's almost bypassed, and it's almost I won't upset the apple cart.
Yeah,
I don't want that confrontation with somebody.
But would it have upset the apple cart? Did you have to eat the same anyway? It
was to do with what we were ordering drinks wise, actually, because I wanted red, she wanted white.
Got it. Did they not do half bottles?
No, they didn't. And
well, they do by the glass?
They did, but it got into, well, if we're going to have 2 glasses, we might as well have a bottle. You know that.
That
argument.
No, the conversation. But there's also a place where it's like, well, I don't want to have a half bottle of red. I want to have this, and it sounds like it would have been okay to say, because you could have said, which you wanted, which?
I wanted red.
Right, and she wanted white.
Yeah.
So if you said, well, I really want red, she might have been like, well, I really don't mind, so let's have red. Or no, I really want white. Okay, well, no problem. Well, you have red and I'll have white. Do you know what I mean? It's like if someone's sort of like 51, 1, 49, no, it doesn't really matter either way. but you clearly wanted red.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
you weren't on the fence. You clearly wanted red.
That's what I wanted. And of course, what we did was ended up having a bottle of white. And what did I do? Passive aggressive. I thought, I'm not drinking this. I just thought, this is awful. I'm not drinking it.
Yeah.
And I knew what I was doing afterwards, but it was like I was incapable, earlier on of.
Well, the tricky thing is it sounds like at the point you realised how strongly you felt, you'd already ordered the bottle.
Yeah, it was too late back then.
Well, it wasn't necessarily too late because you could have said, you know what, I realised I really didn't want white. I want red. I'm happy to pay half the bottle of white because it's my fault for saying yes, but I'm actually going to order a glass of red because that's what I really want. So there also could have been a way of fixing it. But I suspect at that point also, I don't want to upset the apple cart. I don't want to be too fussy. And I think people, there's like a continuum from total conformity to completely, I'll do what the fuck I want, quite honestly. And we all exist at different places on that spectrum. It's kind of very shocking to my mum and stepdad that we'll go out to dinner and I will ask for things that are not that way on the menu. Like something will come with something and I'll see on the menu they've got something else. Like, can I swap that for that?
Yeah.
Which in my mind is like the most reasonable thing in the world. And in their mind is like, oh my God, that's so rude. Like, look, you just do what you, but in their mind, you go and see a doctor and they tell you something, you don't question it. Whereas in my mind, you ask every question in the book that you want to have clarity for your body. It's in a sense, so we have different levels of where we feel comfortable. But I think the important point is for you to be at peace, and you weren't at peace with the way that it played out.
No, I wasn't.
You said there were a couple of examples that you could think of.
And there was another one as well, which I didn't, just in the same day, that at the end of the play, it's a pet hate of mine, and this is something I'm really going to start to honour. I hate it when everybody just shoots off after the play.
Yeah.
And this play, it was a brilliant play. And
what was the play?
It was Leopoldstadt, Tom Stoppard. It's very moving, but it's not a feel good play, but it's the dialogue is fantastic. It's so well done and it's very meaningful for him. I don't know if you know anything about it.
No, I don't.
No, because he's sort of found his Jewish heritage, but very late in life.
Right,
I didn't even realise he was completely Jewish.
Wow.
So I mean, it's about what happens in generations of this very secular Jewish family down the generations, and it's very well written. I say very moving, but I really hate it when everybody's just finished and everybody's just getting up and moving, because I really needed a few minutes
to process.
To process what I'd heard.
Yeah.
And my friend was like, "Oh, it's too hot in here, out. Come on, get your Coke, out."
Was this before the cast had left the stage, or
they had like,
because there are those people as well.
Yeah,
but it's like literally as soon as it's like it feels like it's ending, they want to get out.
Let's get to the car park.
They're more interested in getting out quickly. They are respecting the people that spent 2 hours entertaining you.
Yes, yeah. It really is something that I'm a bit the same in the cinema as well. But anyway, I know I'm a bit of
But it sounds like in that moment, what you needed was to be able to sit and to process and take a minute.
Yeah.
And what your friend wanted was to leave.
Yeah.
And there isn't necessarily in that moment a right or wrong.
No.
Just like the red and white is not a right or wrong, but you had a need and a preference that needed to be honoured. And again, in that instance, if she really wants, or whoever wants to get up and go, so well, I'll meet you in the foyer, I just need a minute. But it's about you honouring what you need in that moment. Yeah,
and I could have said that. I could have so easily said, "Look, again, as you just said, I need a minute. I'll see you outside in a moment or two." It's voicing what I need and accepting the difficulty that I have with that.
Yeah.
And feeling that I'm worth I have the value that I'm worth. I can't even say it. That I'm worthy enough to ask for what I need.
Yeah. How do you feel as you say that?
Feels quite good actually to say that. Yeah.
Where do you feel that in your body?
In my heart.
So describe what that feels like.
It's quite a warm sort of, I don't know, nice feeling, like I've put an arm around myself, I guess. Yeah.
Just your microphone.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right.
Yes, covering it up.
But there's a warm feeling.
Yes.
So say a bit more about it.
Just feels warm and fuzzy. Sometimes when I'm meditating, if into it sort of reasonably deeply, I get this beautiful sort of almost a magenta light in the meditation, and it just feels like that light's there. Yeah.
If that light could speak, what would it say?
This feeling's been here all the time, and of course you're worthy, you always have been.
And how does it feel to hear that?
It feels really lovely and really a bit sad at the same time that it's taken all this time to acknowledge that.
Does it feel okay to feel the sadness?
Yeah, it does. It does. It feels, yeah. And there's a sense of, well, at least I've got here eventually.
Yeah. And it's almost like part of the essence of that sadness, I think, as well, is that there's a sadness of having not had it, but also, I think, a sense of, I'm not quite sure it's quite the right word, but almost like a ferociousness of, I'm going to make sure that I now I know this to be true.
Yeah.
I'm now going to make sure that my life reflects this truth.
Yes. 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 But do it in a kind way, not in a way that's so that I don't beat myself up when I don't always get it right.
Well, here's how I think about boundaries. Those of us that have not been good at doing boundaries, it's sort of like a pendulum that's over here.
Yeah.
And you've got to swing to a point of balance. And you may find that you have to overswing that point a little bit.
Yes.
So sometimes what happens is those boundaries can be a bit overly hard or a bit too rigid or a bit bruising for other people. And that means that if that happens a few times, you can mop it up and you can always pick up the phone to someone the next day and go, I just wanted to apologize. I've been working. You probably know that historically I've not been so good with boundaries. I'm really working on it. In hindsight, I realized I was a little punchy. I didn't mean, that wasn't my intention. My intention was not to be a bruising of you. My intention was to stand up for me.
Yeah.
But I think you have to have that permission to overswing the boundary a little bit, to practice, because you don't really know the edge until you find it. And your inner critic story is that a boundary here is too much, but probably the true boundary needs to be here. But you won't really know that that's the boundary until you go a bit far and you go, oh, actually, might have crossed the mark a little bit there.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think it's just, because what I've realized is I just have to take things on a daily basis. A bit more rather than, again, the expectation of this will be fixed by then or whatever. Yeah. It's just,
this is a many decades pattern of being accommodating and people pleasing and sort of swallowing your wants to appease others.
Yes.
And what I'm hearing you say is you're very clear you are done with that.
Yeah.
Does that feel true?
Yeah,
it feels true to me.
Yes, it does. I just think, somehow or other, I don't want to carry on. I think I probably said that even right at the beginning. I don't want to carry on like this.
Yeah.
And I know that the only way that the change has to come from me somehow. And at times that feels, it certainly has in these last few weeks, really overwhelming.
Yes.
Because it's like I'm sort of dealing with the inner critic or trying to deal with that. And again, that's been more, and haven't really been doing any processing after meditation with that. It's been more on a day-to-day basis when it seemed to have come up. And there's been a lot more stuff from being a child that's come up as well with doing that, I think.
Well, I'd like to come to that in a second, but I just want to kind of give a a bit more context to where we are. Right. So I think there are 3 pieces here.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, because I can feel, I just want to just to keep us in a way that we both understand where we are.
I'm sorry.
So no, don't apologize at all. But so it feels manageable for you as well. Because I think there's the place of I deserve, which we've just been exploring. I deserve what I want.
Okay.
Yeah. I deserve, I'm worthy, I'm allowed to have what I want.
Yeah.
There's then learning how to do that.
Yeah.
So one is more of an emotional place of insight and truth. The second is actually a skill. So you can know that you deserve those boundaries, but not know how to do it very skillfully.
Yeah.
So that we can have the insight and the realization, but we then have to practice, and you have to learn how to put those boundaries in place. And that's what I mean about letting yourself overswing the pendulum a little bit, and feel we can talk in how to do that. There's a third piece here that you were just getting into, which I think is also important, which is your inner critic response when you get it wrong, when you kind of overstep the mark, or when you take up too much space, or when you're attending to your needs but not being sensitive to the other one, and your inner critic's got a whole story and a whole kind of armory, in a sense, of how to knock you back into the old place. I feel like that developing the skill of how to do it is the easier piece. I actually think that what stops you from being able to do that is the inner critic piece. So you were just starting to talk about that, and I'd like to give that a bit more of a focus.
Yeah,
I think
that's
it's
helpful.
important.
Thank you. I'm trying to think of some examples, and I can't think of any off the top of my head. Where I've tried. Well, I suppose that the whole event with the theatre, that was I wanted to make the boundary, but my inner critic was my inner critic stopping me there.
So what was it saying to you?
It was almost, and I don't think I could even hear this verbally, it was almost like that the other person's needs were probably more important than mine, actually.
Which makes sense, because that was certainly how it used to be.
Yes, so certainly that was being said. And again, it's lack of my own self-importance.
And there's what your inner critic says to. Sorry, you're finishing your thoughts.
No, they're a bit scrambled at the minute, if I'm honest. I'm just trying to think of another example that might be. Because I know the inner critic is there such a lot, and sometimes I'm not even aware that it's great when I am aware that it's going on, but sometimes I'm not, and I'm also aware that I will project it onto other people.
Yeah.
So that I will probably hear what they're saying in a different way if it goes along with what the inner critic is.
So what in that instance where your friend is kind of ready to leave and on the way out, and you're thinking, oh, I really need to sit here, and that moment you don't sit there, you decide to get up and to go. What are you projecting that they would think if you sat there?
They're fed up with me.
Okay, say more.
That I know what that goes back to. It goes back to they won't be my friend anymore.
Right.
If I say what I want, that I won't be a nice person anymore.
Right.
And
so you need to be a nice person to be liked.
Yes. And there's that fear that if I ask for what I need, I'm risking that friendship. So that it, potentially wouldn't be there anymore.
So there's a belief that if you ask for what you need, you risk losing the friendship.
Yeah.
Put another way, if I ask for what I want, then people will abandon me.
Yeah.
So that's definitely been the history, right? That's the story that's been there in the past. Is that actually true? When we kind of put a spotlight on that and we talk about that in that way, does that actually feel true?
I don't know if I've ever tested it out.
Yeah, right.
If I'm honest.
You've got what's called a confirmation bias, where you just keep confirming the narrative because you don't challenge it.
Yeah, because this is, again, it's a bit of a tangent, but I don't take risks really at all. And I think that goes back more than my parents. I think it goes back to school quite a bit, because there was instances in school. I mean, when I had my breakdown, I remember being put in the stock room with a bucket. That if I wasn't going to stop crying, I could cry in the bucket.
Wow.
I mean, that would just be abuse now, wouldn't it?
Well, it was abuse then. It just wasn't called that.
It would, yeah. And I remember trying to do. This is so metaphorical. Trying to do hurdles, and I was out first in the hurdles because I couldn't jump over them.
I couldn't jump over mine.
That makes me feel slightly better. And I remember then somebody else couldn't. The girl after me, and the class laughed at her. They hadn't laughed at me for whatever reason. They didn't do. And I remember the teacher saying, well, stop laughing. She wasn't the first anyway. Which, okay, was nice for the girl that...
But not so nice for you.
But not so nice for me. And then I was thrown out of the school choir in front of the whole class because I'm tone deaf. And I was only 10, and I remember sitting there singing my little heart out. And the choir mistress saying, there's somebody here that's not, it's not the right, whatever I was supposed to be, not the right note. And I thought, it's not me. And it was. And I remember being told to leave. And I remember that walk home.
Wow.
So these things have sort of just come back recently.
Which at the time would have been devastating.
Yeah.
And I hope, as you describe it now, what you realise is that was just horrific teaching.
Yeah, it was. And again, I suppose that started off the angry feeling, because I thought, well, it's no wonder with the upbringing I'd had up to that point, and then these things happening, because I didn't do well in sport because I couldn't mix, because I hadn't been socialised properly by my mother.
Right.
So
and also part of sport is pushing your boundary. And if you're accommodating and people pleasing, it's very difficult to be competitive.
Absolutely. Because I just give up. And in hockey, I remember I used to run the other way from the ball. I used to say it's because I didn't want my ankles bashed with a hockey stick, but I just didn't want to have anything to do with it. I've been screamed at by the, sports mistress. Balls that way, go that way. I just wouldn't. Yeah. So I so going back to, I don't take any risks with anything. I'm scared to take a risk.
It's quite a lot of space to grow into here, isn't there? It feels quite exciting in a sense because, and of course there are lots of places in your life where you have taken risks and done some challenging things. So I as much as it might feel like you've always been, I don't think that's actually entirely true.
No. And
what I'm hearing you say is that there's a lot of space to grow into here.
Well, there's sort of another example of that. I joined the Ramblers recently. I hadn't been on many walks, and I went on a walk a few weeks ago, I think before my last session here, because I was going to mention it, but I realised afterwards I had a horrible time on this walk. But I realised afterwards, again, that was my inner critic, because I felt completely inadequate on this walk. Like everybody I talked to, I didn't know any of them, had gone along. And again, that was another thing I didn't stick up for myself, because the person that was running the walk was half an hour late. And they were a bit apologetic, but the person she was bringing forgot her shoes and they had to go back and be, but it was a bit mismanaged. Then they didn't know the route properly. And I kind of wanted to be back for a certain time and thought I'd be definitely back for this time. But they were meandering and the walk was taking longer because she didn't know if it was this path or whatever. And everybody I spoke to seemed to have a partner, children, grandchildren, either all three or two out of whatever. Or all these hobbies, or did all these exciting things. Well, I just felt, I think, I was angry. So I was getting passively aggressive angry because I hadn't verbalised it, because I was too scared to, because I didn't know these people anyway. So I'm going, it's okay, you're half an hour late, we're all freezing to death waiting for you. And also because I was just feeling all these people seem to have such perfect lives and I didn't. And my interior critic was like, you're not to do a Ramblers again. You don't fit in with these people, and how can you, because you're this, that and the other, you're right. I literally got in the car after that walk, and in fact I stormed off at the end of the walk because I was so fed up, and I just said to this chap, will you say goodbye to everybody because I have to be home. And got in and I just cried all the way home, and I couldn't at the time I couldn't. It's only just now sitting here thinking about it, I couldn't in fact I've thought about it, but since then, after our last session, and did make some inroads in it, but it's kind of making a lot more sense.
Because it's a conflation of a few different issues, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the issue of everyone else has got the things that I haven't got, and the issue of someone acting in a kind of boundary violating way, and also you not being able to defend and stand up for that boundary. So it's all of these pieces kind of meshed in together.
Yeah. Yes. So I'm not acknowledging how I felt or what's going on, really.
And sometimes we acknowledge how we feel and it's not appropriate or necessary to voice it, but we need to acknowledge for ourselves.
Yes.
And other times we do need to voice it, and learning which of those times it is its own practice in a sense to figure out what we need.
Yeah.
Like in an instance like that, it might be you say, do you know what, it's actually really inconvenient because I do need to finish on
Yes.
time. Is it possible we can shorten the walk?
Yeah.
I do need to be back
Yes.
by this time. And they might say, no, we can't. And you say, well, actually, I'm not going to come, or I'm
Yes.
going to the last few miles, I'm going to go a bit of a faster
Yeah.
pace and get back,
Yeah.
or you decide to leave, or but in a sense, to not say something just leaves you with all of those feelings.
Yes.
Or it might be you acknowledge you're pissed off. You think this person screwed up. I'm probably not going to go on a walk with this person again, but there's plenty of other Rambler walks that happen around the country. But I need to know, I'm just going to acknowledge I'm pissed off. And knowing when you need to verbalize or not is a good example of
Yeah.
what I mean about finding where the boundary is. And sometimes you don't know until you practice. Sometimes you practice verbalizing and you go, actually, I feel a lot better for doing that.
Yes.
And other times you go, actually, they haven't got the emotional maturity to hear it,
Yes.
or there was nothing that could be done about it. So, but you've got to kind of let yourself make some mistakes. Almost like part of, I think, your homework's going to be practice making some mistakes in setting your
Yes.
boundaries, not learn how to do it right, just do the best you
Just do
can,
it.
because you're going to learn through doing
Yeah.
that.
What I was actually pleased about with doing inner critic work was that I actually got myself to do another Ramblers walk with something similar to what you've said. And I just thought, let's do a different group, different one. And go in it with a different attitude, that if you don't meet anybody you get on with or you don't feel comfortable, it doesn't matter. It's one day of your life. You'll be walking, which you love doing. And I kind of went into it with a bit of a different mindset, trying to kick my inner critic into kingdom come at the moment, because that seems to be
that's
the best,
where it belongs.
That's the best way to deal with it. And I did the walk, and that walk was a lot better. What came up in that walk was I got involved in this conversation with somebody again. Husband was in the walk, and she belonged to a choir, and she did all these things. And again, I could hear my inner critic, yeah, and you don't belong to anything, and you don't do anything, and you're just this, that, and the other. No interest, blah, 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 blah. And I really tried to kick it away, stop hearing it. And she mentioned something, that there were members of the Arts Society. Now, I love paintings and I do like art. When I was at dental school, I used to fib and say I did history of art rather than dentistry. I thought it sounded much more romantic than doing dentistry.
Bless you.
Anyway, I made up this complete fabrication. And instantly I thought about joining, and inner critic came straight in. Don't be ridiculous for posh people. You can't possibly be a member of that. You won't fit in. You don't know anything about art.
Isn't the whole point that you join so you can learn something about art?
Exactly. And I had a real struggle with myself when I got home, because the lady that was talking was very sweet, gave me the website, everything, told me when the lectures were. And I thought, it's a lecture once a month. You don't even have to talk to anybody. Anyway, long story short, I have sent an email, got a lovely email back, and I'm going to go as a guest to the first meeting.
Good for you. Well
so that
done.
felt a real, it's a little step, but it felt
I was
like
about to say that as your homework, but you've already done it. So takes care of that, doesn't it?
Well, it's one
But
one small step.
You see, it's a step, significant step. And what's also interesting is you're describing the lives that other people have. Yes, it's too late to have children and grandchildren, but it's not too late to do a whole lot of things that you probably couldn't do as easily if you had children and grandchildren.
Sure.
And I'd love to hear more about some of those things that you would love to do. Like joining a choir might be another one.
Oh no, because I can't do that. I can't sing. I'm tone deaf.
Well, that's what your teacher told you when you were 10, 11 years old.
No.
Doesn't mean you can't learn.
I tried the rock choir a few years ago, and the woman stood next to me moved.
Oh, bless her.
Honestly, it was awful. I was told anybody could join the rock choir. I can't do that.
Would you like to learn a musical instrument?
Yeah, but I'm tone deaf. I love music.
Do you know how I discovered that I couldn't sing? So I thought, like you did, I thought, well, I can sing. He can't sing. And I remember when I was about like 8, 9, 10, 11 or something, and having, those tape decks where you could record onto a tape.
Yeah.
So I had one tape player which was playing a tape, and another one recording. So I was playing the backing track, and then I was singing and I was recording. So I recorded about 30 seconds. I listened back to that. And after a couple of notes, I was like, well, I guess I can't sing. It was genuinely awful. But that doesn't mean that I wasn't able to learn the guitar. And still, these days, I'm not particularly good these days. I was better when I was a kid, but I enjoy playing music.
Yeah.
Being able to sing is not the same as being able to enjoy playing music.
Right. Okay, well, that's a thought. We'll leave it there.
I don't want to push too far. But in a sense, it's thinking about what are the things that would bring your heart joy.
Yeah.
It's not about what would you be good at. It's not about what would you be people like you for doing. It's about what's your heart's desire? What would you like to do? And then it may be that you find great joy in something that you're not good at, but you enjoy it. And that's what's important.
Yeah. And I don't know that I've really made that. Well, I've given up before I've even started.
That's it. And that's going back to these three pieces. There's the permission, there's the skill, and then there's the inner critic. And if the inner critic's got too much power, you don't get started. How are you getting on with defending against your inner critic? It sounds like you are making some progress. I think there's definitely more awareness about what's happening, but it also feels like there is some more space, even though it may not feel as good as it will in time.
Yeah, I haven't done any, as I say, sort of specific time where I've just sat and done a meditation and thought about the inner critic. It's been mainly when it's come into my head, and I have just done the rid process and just literally. So I think to start with, I had that really difficult meditation when my mum and dad were there and the devil was there. My mum and dad aren't there anymore now. It kind of feels like they crumbled a bit and said they were sorry, and they're not there, which feels actually quite positive. Yeah. The devil keeps coming and going, but he's really been bashed a lot.
He's taken a few body blows.
Yeah, so there's been times he's looked like a much kind of more sad and sorry, rather bruised, battered appearance. I think, going back to those school events, I think I've got the inner critic teachers there somewhere.
Yeah, right.
I think they're definitely there now, because there's very few teachers that I remember being what I would call good teachers when I was growing up.
Do you remember particular incidents that come to mind?
And well, obviously there's
the choir one.
The stock room. There was the choir
stock
one.
Room.
Netball, I remember being shouted at because I didn't know how to play netball. And I didn't know you just didn't run down the whole of the court with it and throw it in the net. I thought I'd done really well. I didn't realise I'd send it to somebody else. Don't ask me why I didn't know. I just didn't know. Yeah. And I remember being shouted at about that. I can't remember any other specific instances, but I remember being very frightened a lot of school.
Yes. Well, also part of
getting questions wrong.
Yeah.
And I was very rebellious, funnily enough. I mean, not what you'd call rebellious nowadays, but at the time it was. I mean, like, I hated the sport so much that I was never picked for any team because I was never good enough. And you were sent to watch the sport, even if you weren't playing. It was freezing damn cold, you know, in Yorkshire in November or whatever.
Yeah, wow.
And we found where the music teacher kept the key to the double bass cupboard. And so myself and a friend, and I hate being cold, used to get ourselves locked in the double bass cupboard. So when the prefects went round the school to chuck everybody out that were hiding, because we tried hiding in the toilets and that never worked. So
you'd rather be locked in a cupboard than be outside in the cold.
And I mean, there was all hell to play when we got caught for doing that. Wow. And I playing tennis, I'd knocked the ball into the boys' school next door so that I didn't have to play tennis anymore. Wow. I mean, I remember...
There was definitely a defiant part of you, wasn't there?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. So there was, because I remember getting this report that said I'd done very well to have come top of the year, but it was a bit of a shame that I'd also got more detentions than any other child.
I want to encourage the part of you got the detentions to come out a bit more.
And I was thinking, because actually I did, you know, and I was sent to guides, and it'd be guides. I hated it. I got thrown out of that for smoking with the scouts round the back. That was more interesting than having to listen to this woman, whoever she was, telling you how to do it not. So there was definitely...
So there is a place in you.
So there was... I mean, the thing is, it was squashed out a lot because I couldn't be rebellious at home.
Yeah.
But I don't think I had any respect for the teachers I had at all.
What if you were to name that part of you? What name would you give? What would you call it?
I call it Red, actually.
Red, yeah. What would Red have to say about life now?
She'd be saying, oh, for God's sake, come on, get out there.
Right. Yeah.
What have you been doing the last 10 years?
Yeah, because she's got some life force, right?
Mm.
She's not going to be told to have white wine when she wants red wine.
No.
She's not going to be dragged out the theatre when she wants to sit and process the last couple of hours for a few minutes. And she's got some guts. You've got some guts. How does it feel to recognise that?
It's mixed again. It feels good and it feels sad and it feels wonderful and it feels a whole jumble stuff. Yeah. Yeah. It's like a bit of me, I think, it's been lost for a long time. It feels like... Sorry, I'm covering up my microphone again. Sorry, guys.
We won't put your microphone on your heart next time. No, the heart needs
to get on my sleeve.
What does Red have to say?
I'm wearing a red jumper as well.
Right. And you wanted red wine.
Yes.
What does Red have to say about how you approach the next few weeks?
She wants to say, come on, girl, you can do it.
And what does she want you to do?
Just be you really are. Just be that person that can respect herself, really, I think.
And stand up for herself.
Yeah.
Let her make some mistakes.
Yeah, and that's the difficulty it's make. And it's not so much making mistakes. It's making mistakes in relationships, I think. So there's probably no accident that, lived on my own all this time, so it's safer.
Yeah. And when Red got caught trying to hide behind the bike shed, she didn't give up. She thought, I'll try the comfort of the double bases next time. So she's also got some tenacity as well. Yeah. Okay, I've thought about that for a long time, these last few weeks. Yeah. One of my most prized childhood memories when I used to play the guitar in various bands, and the school bought a drum kit in the music room. So there was a drum kit, and then I had my electric guitar, and a friend of mine had a bass guitar, and I was playing the drums, and we just were going hell for leather, making absolute. We loved it, but it must have sounded absolutely fucking awful. And the music teacher bursts in, screaming, but no one can hear because I'm making so much noise. And then eventually we all clock that she's there and we all stop. She's like, what is this racket? It's absolutely, you get, and she literally just like loses her shit all over us. And we walked away and we were all just like, that was awesome. It's just sometimes you've just got to be free to just do what feels good. And I think so. Well, none certainly of sort of 10 under I was ever had any freedom like that at all, really, that I can remember. And certainly in the last few years, it's been quite limited. Yeah. So I'm almost, one place we could go here is to get a bit prescriptive about, but actually, I think it's more helpful to leave you with the energy of how this feels and let it become clear in the metabolizing of that. But I think the kind of pointers in terms of homework are practice some boundaries. Yeah. Let the pendulum swing. I'm going to send you. Have I given you access to the HEART program? Yes, I've done module 3. So module 11. Oh, I've got to jump. That's really hard. We're not going in sequence here. I've got to jump 8 modules. That's going to be really hard. I promise I won't try and do the other 8. The others are all crap anyway. But module 11 is about this. It's about boundaries, and it's about different types of boundaries, how to set boundaries. So I think it'd be going back to these 3 pieces, there's the permission, there's the skill, then there's the inner critic piece. It'll help with the skill piece to get a bit more awareness about the how to do that.
Deal with them.
But I particularly want you to give voice to red.
Okay.
And just sit with it. It doesn't, you're doing really good work between sessions of moving with the thread and not having to. Some people have to be quite regimented and structured in terms of homework to help things move. And others, it's like they're enough in the flow of what's happening that becoming too structured actually becomes an obstacle, not a support. And my feeling is that I want you to keep going with your meditation practice. I want you to keep working with your inner critic. But I think that with what we've talked about, there's enough activated that it just then needs some time.
And what about the emotional bits, that dealing with that inner child's sadness? Should I still keep working with that?
Keep working with that as well.
And also, and sometimes it's difficult to know, because I had this meditation actually on Saturday where I was working with that was my focus. That's what I was going to work on after doing the presence meditation, on the little girl, on that deep sadness. And as I was doing it, and this does happen sometimes, the inner critical perhaps come in, but as I was doing it, I was thinking, oh, you're going to be late. You're going to be late cooking your supper, and you're supposed to be eating 2 hours before you go to bed, because this is to do with the nutritionist, not to eat too late. And
nutritionist.
Sorry,
bloody nutritionist.
I know. And it's going to be too late, and don't spend too much time on this. And there was another part of me saying, but I want to spend time on it. Then I realised I was getting anxious, and then I thought, well, is this an anxiety pattern? Should I do the stop process? So I did the stop process. That just really didn't help. And then I felt like I was getting running anxiety, which I don't get that so much anymore now, but did a lot through COVID, where anxiety levels just never stop. And then I just got this kind of bolt of fear that felt like, again, this was historical fear. So I got to the point, I didn't know what the hell to work on.
So sometimes the best thing you can do is go and watch Netflix.
So if I get something like that again, just
if it feels like you can't find your thread, like you can't find the bit that you need to work with, because there's so much going on. Sometimes the best thing to do is to leave it alone, do something else, watch Netflix, listen to music, go for a walk, whatever. Settle a little bit, and then it normally becomes clear in of itself.
Right. So I should just be working on one thing at a time.
Not necessarily. Really. Sometimes there's different bits cooking, then a little bit gets the attention. But I would listen to what needs your attention in that instance.
So was that an anxiety pattern or a feeling, or does it really just
Might be both. Might be both. Might be a strong feeling and some anxiety and some overwhelm and some inner critic, and it's all one big soup together.
And the other thing I just wanted to ask as well, with the emotional stuff, when I'm doing that and it's going well, I'm never quite sure, how to leave it and when to leave it. Or does that just have to be a really intuitive thing?
It's about it's intuition, because I think sometimes it's just you've processed as much as you can in that moment, and it's not resolved, but you also run out of time, or you run out of energy, or you run out of space. And other times you actually need to be a bit more with it. But it's about, in a sense, the more emotionally in tune you become, the easier it becomes to navigate those moments.
Right, okay. So it is just, because and I never know quite what to say when I leave it, because sometimes if it still feels a bit raw, but you've been there for a bit and you don't want to overdo it, I don't know. Sometimes it's partly just reassuring that place in you and saying, I'm here for you. Thank you for sharing with me. I need to go and do this right now, and I will have more time tomorrow or later, and just honouring it in that way. Yeah. Okay.
So we've all got, think about that analogy of the dustbin. You're not trying to clear the whole dustbin every time. You're dealing with what you can in that moment.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. That's helpful. And with the inner critic, just do that as and when it comes.
Keep working with it.
Yeah.
That's going to be an ongoing piece of work, which it is for most of us. All of us. I haven't met the person it's not for.
Yeah, thank you. And it's module 11, you said?
Module 11. If you don't remember, you can always email me later and I can remind you.
Thank you, I'm sure.
Good, Bev. Keep going.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
And you.
I hope you found this week's episode helpful. I think we all struggle with this in our own ways. I think Bev was very brave today in sharing these examples in her life where she's got so used to being accommodating to other people, but as a result, paying a real price in her own heart and in her own body of not listening to what it is that she wants. And ultimately, we teach the people around us how to treat us. We set our life up in a certain way where everyone around us just gets used to us being accommodating. But in time, it becomes a void between us and people because we start to shut down and we get irritable and we get upset and we are ultimately not available. We're not connected to the people in our lives that we actually care about and we love. But learning and practicing putting in place these boundaries can be challenging. It's a bit like the pendulum. It swings from one direction. We get so used to not speaking our truth that as it swings to find a point of balance, sometimes we need to go a little bit too far, and that's okay. We need to be gentle with ourselves in the process. So here's my challenge to you this week. Where do you need to speak your truth more? Where do you need to stand up for what you want more? Where do you need to give yourself permission to have your voice? My challenge to you, my invitation to you, is to let that pendulum swing. See if you can have some experiences of taking some brave steps, just like Bev's going to be doing, in putting your voice, putting your truth out there in the world. And let me know how you get on in the comments below the video. Next week, we'll be catching up with Al and we'll be finding out how he's been getting on.